The easiest way to drop from 30% to 10% body fat and keep it. Now, I've done this transformation multiple times, both the traditional ways, counting calories, tracking macros, working out, also by switching what it is that I'm actually consuming from carnivore to fruitarian, juice fasting, water fasting, things of that nature. I'm not a doctor, but I do fancy myself a scientist. I've been studying, researching, testing, and documenting this stuff and helping people go through this transformation for well over a decade. So I'm hoping to put my experience together here and share key pieces of insight that I have gathered through my journey and literally give you like downloadable blueprint that you can use or even download and use for yourself. It can feel like we're failing when in reality, the truth is we actually don't have three things. One, a clear target. Two, clear steps to go from point A to point B. And three, support when we run into issues or most likely get into our own head, which is certainly what usually happens to me. So I'm hoping to provide those three things, more so those first two. And if you need support, obviously you can get in touch with me. I'll be more than happy to help. First thing to consider here is, why are you even doing this? Is this to improve your self-confidence? Is this to improve your health numbers, your blood pressure, your triglycerides, your cholesterol, things of that nature? Is it to simply just feel great? Or is it, like I did, competition by the dudes in the gym? So when I first did this transformation well over a decade ago, I was in a gym, working in a gym as a trainer, and was challenged by another trainer to do this. And I took it on because why not? That's what young dudes do. So really consider why, because this can be difficult. I'm hoping the new framework that I present today will make it simpler, but this can be difficult if we're being, honest. And when you hit those points, your why is what's going to push you through. Once you've done it once and you get the feel for it, it's actually not that complex. And if you use the framework that I'm going to present towards the end of this video, in my opinion, it's actually very, very easy and very simple, or simple to do. Maybe not easy for all, but simple to do. So where are we starting from here? And let's go to the handy dandy iPad here. And I'll use myself as an example. Let's say I'm starting for about 205 pounds. And this is close to my first transformation. And I'm about 25% body fat. And you can judge this whether you go for a professional scan or you use clippers or you use photos like I used, and we'll pop one up here. But I'm about 25% body fat. If we take 1% of that total weight that I am, 205, we get 2.05. Now, I want to drop from 25% body fat to 10% body fat. So that's a difference of about 15%. So what does that 15% equal to? So I take that 15% and I multiply it by the 2.05 up here, which is going to tell me that I need to drop about 30.75 pounds of fat. So if I look at my starting weight, how much fat I need to drop in pounds, and this is about, with a little bit of rounded, this is about where I'm going to end up. Now that I know what my clear target is, and you can calculate this for yourself, pause this video and do so. Now I'll calculate what's known as my total daily energy expenditure. It's very easy. You can Google it. There's tons of calculators out there. Go through the calculations and process that and see, where am I starting from? How many calories do I need to eat to simply maintain where I am? From that point, I'm going to create a caloric deficit, or what I like to call a slight tolerable sense of like hunger, just a little bit of a burn. And at 500 calories per day, every single day, I'm going to end up about 1 pound of weight lost per week. And guys, here's a tip. There's so many tools out there. You can use an AI calculator. You can use ChatGPT and just put in your information and tell it to create meals for you. Now I calculate what are my macros, and then I calculate what are some of the meals that I can eat at that point. So how long then would it take me to hit my goal? I found that dropping about 1% body fat per week in general is pretty sustainable. So if I'm dropping 15%, that means it's going to take me 15 weeks. Now, we all know, if you've ever been in like construction or something, we all know that you want to add like almost double the time, right? So add about 4 or 5 weeks or so for anything that could potentially come up, right? Whether you didn't follow the diet strictly enough, whether you aren't moving enough, whatever it may be, things are going to come up. So this is just like an estimate. I also want to point out here that it's very important to note that there is a difference between our total weight that we see on the scale and our total body fat percentage. Okay, our weight is made up of so many different variables, and take a look here, from water to bones, minerals, and even like inflammation or poor digestion still backed up in our colon. We can have several pounds of feces backed up in our colon. And if you have this big belly or trying to drop body fat, probably have a few other things going on as well that we want to address, or at least I know I did. I also want to point out that you can be in a caloric deficit and not drop fat. That is possible. I hardly ever hear anybody really talking about this, but it is possible. Just because you're in a caloric deficit doesn't necessarily mean you're going to drop fat, and it also doesn't mean that you're going to drop the type of fat that you want to drop. But it is helpful to go through the process of calculating this stuff, finding where you should be, what you should aim for, so you have, again, a clear target to hit, and also so you can make adjustments along the way. And honestly, guys, once you do it once, let me put it this way, I no longer count calories. Okay, and most people that I know that are fit, shredded, etc., unless it's their job, they're not counting calories either. So now I have my numbers in terms of where I should be eating and how to create a caloric deficit so that I'm burning or I'm dropping weight. I did certain things to accelerate the process. So for example, training high intensity interval with heavy weights or without weights, different ways of going about it. Tons of research out there. I'm not going to bore you guys with that. And additionally as well too, I'm adding, you've seen the bodybuilders at the gym, right? In their little hoodie, sweating on the Stairmaster. Yeah, right? So that was me, right? I was on the Stairmaster going, man. And it worked. I mean, it worked. It got me kind of where I want to go. But see, the truth is, guys, calories are supposed to represent energy, but it's not a perfect calculation by any means. And you can look up the history of where this comes from and know that there's quite a range of variation, if you will. Calories don't tell our body when to burn fat and when to store fat. Hormones do that. So let me go back to the screen here, to the iPad, so I can show you. We've been told literally that it's all about calories in, calories out, right? It's all about calories in and calories out. And if you want to lose weight, you want to eat less and move more. Guys, but here's the interesting piece about it. Imagine that you're going to the best, party that you've ever been to, and they're going to be the top 5 chefs in the world there. And you want to show up as hungry as possible. What are you going to do? Well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to eat less and move more to increase my level of hunger, right? So I eat less, I move more, increase my level of hunger. Well, in our modern food environment, meaning the environment where we live in with all this delicious metabolism killing foods out here, as soon as you step out the door, right, and I have this delicious donut shop, like, guys, a stone's throw from my apartment, from where I live right now, right? And so I step out and you can just smell it. We're told that, hey, you want to eat less, move more, create hunger, right? In our modern food environment, and the tool that we're going to give you is willpower. Don't you want this? How bad do you want it? Yeah, right? I'm ashamed to say that used to be me as a trainer in the past, okay, guys? Confessions. But in a world full of delicious metabolism killing foods, willpower will always lose compared to hunger. And that's where a lot of people fall. Now let's go one step further, okay? For me, the goal is, and this may not be true for you, but for me, to present a full picture, the goal is, yes, I want to look shredded. I want to have low body fat and muscles. I also want to perform well mentally and physically. Like, I want to perform well, and I want to feel great. Like, I want to have high energy. I want to be disease free, right? I want to be right at this intersection here. Okay. Now I'll tell you why that's important here in a bit. Now remember, we said hormones signal to the body when to store and when to burn fat. Now let's talk about that a little bit here. We have 2 hormones we want to pay attention to. We have insulin and glucagon. Insulin will increase your appetite, and I'm oversimplifying this a bit to get the point across. So, spare me, if you will. Oh, please spare me in the comments, if you will. So insulin will increase appetite, increase cravings, and increase fat storage. Whereas glucagon, again, not a Pokemon, but it's the opposite, the harmonious yin-yang twin of insulin, will do the opposite, decrease appetite, decrease cravings, and decrease fat storage. So what does that mean? That means that when insulin is high, glucagon is low, we're storing fat. And when insulin is low and glucagon is high, we're burning fat. So let's look at this here. Okay. When we wake up in the morning, it's the period of not eating. Our glucagon is high, our insulin is low, and we're burning fat. Now, we hardly ever stay there, because think about this, guys. Why do we store fat? Body stores fat so that it can have energy to draw upon in times when you don't have access to food. In our modern environment, that is hardly ever the case. We wake up in the morning, we might have some Captain Crunch, some Pebbles, some bagel, toast, and that will spike our insulin, drop our glucagon, and now we are storing fat. We're over here, we're storing fat, right? Rather than burning fat. So already we're on the sugar train. We're on the sugar train, okay? Now our body will try to slowly move back the other way, and then we'll have a snack, pop, spike again. And then it'll try to move the other way, and then we have lunch, right? Where I might have some pizza or maybe even a decent meal, right? It doesn't have to be a bad meal, but it will still spike. We'll have another snack here to get us through, and it will spike again, and we keep going. So we are hardly ever burning fat. Now, this is assuming we're eating pretty decent meals, but yet our energy is off because we're on the sugar train. We're not burning fat. And we're developing other issues like insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia. And that we'll save for another video, but that's a whole host of other issues. You may think, man, I'm not fat, I'm not blah, blah, blah. Why are we talking? Guys, I want you to watch this video real quick.
You eat one time a day and still sustain like the body?
Well, I used to be a lot bigger. Yeah, I was jacked, right?
Nigga, so, you jacked?
Nah, but I was like, I'm 220. I used to be 250, you know what I'm saying? Solid.
Muscle.
Yeah, but that's not healthy though. You know what I mean? I thought I was healthy.
Yeah.
But I went and got my blood work done like in 2016. And they were like, bro, look at this. You're trending to becoming pre-diabetic.
Where'd it come from?
Just too much, eating too much, spiking your insulin over and over and over and over. You don't have to be fat to become diabetic. You know what I'm saying?
So you were just eating a lot to gain more muscle.
Right.
Mike puts it into perspective that this is not about how quote unquote fat you are. This can be an issue like it was for me, for him, for others who appear to be in good shape. Remember, we come back here and looks, performance, and feel overlap, but they're not exactly the same. They're not exactly the same, okay? So what's the issue? Is it really eat less and move more? I don't think so. It's part of the equation, right? But the problem of how I got to 25, 30% body fat in the first place is actually underlining three H's. It's hunger, right? It's hormones, and then it's habits that cause me to do two things: to eat the wrong foods and eat too often. Choosing my words carefully here so we understand. It's eat the wrong foods. Let's simplify. Carbohydrates, fats, and proteins spike insulin at a different rate. But even then, there's other ways that we'll talk about here in a bit of processing foods and that change how the food behaves once it goes into the system. So it's not a simple calories in, calories out. It's not that simple, okay? It's part of it, but it's not that simple, okay? So we eat the wrong foods and we eat it too often. That's really what the issue is. And at the base of that, or the root of that, it's things like hunger driven by hormones, and our hormones, which tell us when to store, when to break down, or when to store fat and when to burn fat for energy. Okay. Now this leads me to our new framework. So how do we do it? So we're eating the wrong foods, right? And I'm not demonizing food. So again, spare me in the comments. And we're eating too often. Not necessarily too much, but too often. We're spiking too often. We never get into fat burn zone. And the third one is we want to enjoy life. Okay, I want to enjoy life. I want to enjoy food. It's freaking delicious. Okay, we shouldn't be fighting with this stuff. But the issue is in the environment that we live in and the understanding of the framework that we're working with, that's not helping. What will help? Okay, and so I'll present to you 3 simple principles to utilize so you don't get into all of this, count all of this stuff. Okay, so 3 simple frameworks. First and foremost, it's fasting. I'm not going to go into all the research. I've put together a pretty comprehensive article and video for you guys. I'll link it somewhere around here to check it out. I'm not going to go deep into all the different things, but highly researched, has supernatural. We literally do it every day. It's just how long we do it for. And has been around for guys, Jesus fast. Okay. I just want you to know Jesus fast, Muhammad fast, Gandhi fast, a lot come on now, so this thing has been around for a long time. Okay. But we're going to leverage it intentionally for our purposes. Okay. So fasting, and I want to limit it specifically because there are different types of fasting to intermittent fasting for our purposes. Okay. So I really think about it in 2 phases. One is feeding, and that's pretty obvious. It's when we're eating. And the other is when we're not eating solid foods, but I call that the hydration period. Hydration period, right? It's hydration period and feeding period. Okay. There's only 2. Right? Unless you're sleeping or something, and then we don't count that. So during the hydration period, I'm focused on hydrating the body, because guess what? You'll die a lot quicker from not being hydrated than you will from being hungry in terms of food, in terms of solid foods. Okay. If I don't have water, I'll die pretty quickly. I can live a pretty long time, depending on how much body fat I have without food. Okay. So hydration, extremely important. So in that period of not eating, I'm focusing on hydrating, and there's 3 main liquids, if you will, that I'm drinking. First and foremost, my morning hydration drink, and with that, I have a little bit of salt, a little bit of either lemon juice or apple cider vinegar in there, and it's warm. Want to definitely make sure it's warm, and that's my morning hydration drink. Okay, I have about a quart of that, one of those glass things, and I'll put it up here so you can see it. Then obviously water, right? Whether you want to add some lemon or a pin, some electrolytes in there, but things that won't break you fast. And then, a lot of people enjoy, and I used to as well, black coffee, okay, will actually help essentially enhance your fast. And again, we're not going to dive too deep into it today, but for me, I'm not a huge fan. I get jitters, I get all types of I get all flighty, right? I feel a little weird. I have a crash afterwards. So I prefer mate drink. Okay, it helps increase my energy, so clear focus. So during this time, typically in the morning, I'm crushing work. I feel great. It improves my mood and helps me burn fat, helps me create ketones, etc. So that's what I prefer to coffee. But if you want to do black coffee, that's totally up to you as well. Okay. During the feeding period, a couple of things I keep in mind. How I break the fast, extremely important. And I've made other videos on that as well, a whole video on that. But how I break the fast is extremely important. Also, the feeding window, because I'm intermittent fasting, I have a hydration period and a feeding window, I actually shrink my plate, if you will, right? It's like, imagine, you're about to eat, you grab a big plate versus a small plate, right? The chances of you over consuming with a big plate is much higher than with a small plate. Now, but if I have, a big old plate and a small plate, right? This is 24 hours of eating whenever, as often, whatever, versus, whether it's how many ever hours, whether it's, let's say 8 hours or so, right? I can fit a lot more mistakes, if you will, here than I can here. So now the calorie piece is almost kind of taken care of. Okay. Now I hear a few of you go, challenge accepted. Okay. I'm going to try to consume more calories in that span of time. But guys, let me talk about this. Even if that's the case, right? Depending on the type of fast you use, for example, alternate day fasting, and again, that's for another video here, but where I'm eating essentially every other day or so, research shows it almost doesn't matter how much, like you can't over consume in terms of calories, right? Now, again, I will dive into this another time, but I just want you to understand how changing the pattern makes a significant difference, and even accounts in a way, not 100%, but accounts for a way in terms of calories, which is so important to us, Point 2 during feeding period is I'm thinking about enjoyment, because at the end of the day, if you're not enjoying good food with good people, like you're not going to sustain this over a long period of time. So it doesn't mean eat whatever, but it means you should be enjoying the foods that you're eating, which, guys, oftentimes when you fast, your taste buds actually change, right? So where you're like I mentioned again, right? These hormones dictate cravings and appetite, etc. So if anyone who's ever fasted will tell you, your cravings actually change over time. So you crave healthier foods. Okay, so now you're working with your body as opposed to against your body, right? So that's number 2. Number 3 is when I am making choices in terms of what to eat, I focus on proteins, fiber, and fat. Okay, these are the things that have shown to not spike insulin as high, to keep me sustained and full as long as possible. And there are tons of delicious things that fall in this category. Hormones respond differently to different foods. Food is information. To treat it as simply numbers is not beneficial. The next thing I'm paying attention to is how is the food processed? Like, what is the quality of the food coming out of the ground? How is it handled before it gets to me? How do I cook it? Am I eating it raw? Am I eating it fried, deep fried, right? Am I juicing it, baking it, sauteing it, right? All of these different things impact how the food behaves once it gets into the system. And then the last piece I'm thinking about here, and guys, these are very simple, and I have this in a document for you guys to quickly learn these things. But the last thing I'm paying attention to is trophology, or the science of combining foods. And this is important because, again, digestion, right? Am I combining the food in such a way that it's digesting properly? And are the things that I actually want from the food? Because, the truth is we don't use protein. Our body breaks down protein into amino acids before it actually uses it. Okay. So am I absorbing and breaking down these macronutrients into micronutrients in a way that my body actually handles well? And also, am I getting the maximum level of energy from all of this, right? If I told you had to put in $5 to get $2, would you do that? Absolutely not. So why are we doing that with our body, right? If I told you put in $5 and you're going to get $10 back, you're doing that every time. The efficiency to which we're able to extract what we need from our foods matter, right? And it matters as to what our bodies are then doing. Because when we free up energy from digestion, etc., what happens is our body utilizes, it doesn't just go to rest, it utilizes that in different ways at the cellular level. Okay, so we should be eating to provide nutrients at the cellular level, repair at the cellular level, and waste removal at the cellular level. Okay, and I talk about all of this in a doc that hopefully I'll link and you can grab here. The next piece here is movement. Now, guys, let me be honest. Movement or workouts in and of itself, if you look at either the total daily energy expenditure chart, or you just look at, or you put into calculation, what becomes very clear is that movement is less than 20%, if that, of burning fat. The key is our consumption, right? Movement is a very small piece, but we want to move because why? Movement helps us feel great. And if you feel great, you're going to be living life with zest and doing other things that you want to do. I do what I call daily movement meditation practice. No more than 30 minutes in an interval style. And this, I focus on quality of movement, guys. I practice in movement, how to move, how the body to feel, etc. And I've actually designed a progression for over a year. We're going on 2 years now, full of that takes you through different, based on the information that you provide, takes you through different movement progressions so that you can actually practice this stuff in terms of how you're moving. And then when you're out and about playing, you feel great. Because you ever seen that guy that has like, 7, 8, 9, 10% body fat, but like is clearly very unathletic or can't really control their body? Don't be that guy or that girl, right? You want to actually be able to utilize this stuff, okay? So daily movement practice. Now, because we have consumption or fasting in check, right, in what we're eating, our diet, etc., we utilize this time to have fun and enjoy it. And we do it every day because our body is recovering very quickly. We're not tearing our body apart every single day. And like I said, I have this all laid out for you if you'd like. Then the second piece is that we're built to walk, right? If we walk in a heart rate zone, and I'll show you here on the screen how you can just Google and calculate your heart rate zones. Based on the heart rate zone that you're in, is going to dictate whether you're burning fat or you're not. Okay, so walking 10,000 steps in a heart rate zone or our fat burn zone means that we're burning around 500 calories a day. Okay, just walking 10,000 steps, just walking. So in a week, that's 3,500 calories burned. Guess what? Fat is exactly 3,500 calories. Now, let me not say exactly, it's close. So in about a week, you're burning an additional pound of fat by walking in your fat burn zone, 10,000 steps. And obviously you can increase this over time. And what I recommend doing is starting from where you are. Maybe you're not at 10,000, maybe you're at 2,000 because your job requires you to be very sedentary. Well, you start at 2,000 and then every single week you add 1,000. Right? So going from 2,000 to 10,000 is pretty daunting. But if you go from 2,000 to 3,000 to 4,000 to 5, you can build that up over time. And this is one of the biggest principles that I probably should have said a lot earlier, is you don't spook the body. You don't shock the body. You actually want to cook the frog, if you've ever heard that saying. You want to slowly progress so your body doesn't freak out. Right, and it actually has time to adjust to the changes being made and maintain it over time. So daily movement practice, and then walking, very simple. Okay, very simple. Now, the last one here is a lifestyle, and by lifestyle I mean all the things that you're doing. And I have created what I call the daily scorecard. And then daily scorecard, if we plot, this has about 22 based on, again, the information that you provide. Activities or things on there that we want to be ideally on a perfect day, we'll check them all off. Nobody ever has a perfect day. But if you're getting out of 20, let's say, you're getting 5, 4 repeatedly day after day, you're probably not going to hit your goals. And what I mean by that is looking at things like, for example, sleep. Are you sleeping well? Because that affects your hormones and whether you're burning or fat or not. Are you have high levels of stress? Are you using drugs, alcohol, weed? Now, weed, obviously, guys, and I'm not throwing stones here, but obviously will change your appetite, right? And it will cause you to eat more. Are you engaging with the 7 natural doctors, air, sun, etc.? These things all impact how our body deals with things that come in, such as food, etc., and out, right? It changes the metabolism, it changes those things. So in keeping in mind with those 3 principles right there, fasting, movement, and lifestyle, we can actually address a lot without counting calories, tracking macros, and we can sustain it over a lifetime. That's the big piece here, is sustaining it over a lifetime. So if you want the complete program that I use, that my clients use, the daily movements progression over a year in our app, the fasting protocol and the different things to know about it and exactly answer all your questions. And if you want the scorecard, the lifestyle scorecard that I use as well to check off on a day-to-day basis to kind of get an idea of like, where are you? These are just like three, if you will, scores, right? To gamify the process, make it fun. Because if you're not having fun, why do any of this? Those 3 scores, if you will dictate how quickly, right, you're burning fat. And it's very flexible and can be maintained whether you are 20 or whether you are 60. Okay, and you can do it over a long period of time. And guys, this is the final piece here. Not only are you going to burn fat, look shredded, look great, but you're also going to feel great, meaning have high energy and be free of dis-ease. And again, we'll talk about that in another video. And this has been my experience. Again, not a doctor, but you'll feel great. You'll perform well mentally, no brain fog, etc. And physically, you'll perform well as well. And you'll look great as well. So I don't know about you, but I might be a little greedy. I want all of them. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was helpful. If it was, let me know in the comments. Find me on Instagram. And yeah, I want to be helpful to you. So let me know. And until next time, guys, peace.